it's time to talk about my all-time favorite topic, sales psychology. So I have a background in psychology, and I absolutely love the fact that I can write copy and bring in psychology to the copy to help convert more readers and increase conversions on websites. So this is my all-time favorite topic, so I'm very excited. Copy is great because it does the job of selling for you without you having to pick up the phone or sell in person, which a lot of people hate. So if you imagine your writing is very similar to a salesperson talking, so that's why copywriting is kind of so important for business owners to know. Like, just like you learn how to sell for your business over the phone or on Zoom or however you sell, or over the counter if you have a bricks and mortar, or you're a kind of one-to-one service business, selling through copy is a kind of similar idea. So there are lots of science, there's lots of principles that we can apply. When we're actually just thinking about websites, I'm going to give you some tips now just purely for websites, and sales psychology tips that help people to just click that button. So when it's done right, it's not salesy. We've talked about this before. It's really not about trying to make someone buy something that they don't need. It's about trying to make people understand that you can solve a problem that they need solving. So you're not going to be able to solve a problem for someone if they don't have the problem in the first place. So those people are going to hit your website. It's not for them. They'll leave. They're not going to buy something just because you've used words that sells it to them. So it's definitely not salesy. So the first psychological factor that I want to talk about is using binary choice in your call to action buttons. So if you imagine on a website you have a call to action button maybe at the end of the page or halfway up the page that says book a call, or that says download my ebook, or whatever that kind of call to action is. That means that people have the option to either click that button or not click it. So humans like binary choice. We like to choose either one thing or the other. Any more than that, we get a bit confused. Any less than that, we kind of want to know there's one or the other to choose from. So if you either give people the option to click your button or don't click it, then they might not click it. If you put two call to action buttons next to each other, you're giving people the choice of either clicking this button or this button, and then they're more likely to do nothing because that's a third option, and that's kind of a bit too much. So using binary choice on your call to action, particularly at the end of the page. So they've got to the end of your homepage, they've read, they're interested obviously because they've got to the end, and then they are faced with a decision of what to do now. Do they either click this button or do they do nothing? If you can put two call to action buttons next to each other, they're either, the option is to click this button or click this button, and then you're kind of keeping them with you on the journey, whether that's be take them to another page on the site or book a call, or however your call to action buttons work. So using binary choice is a really, really great psychology tip for your website. The other one I wanted to share with you today is called future pacing. And this is a really famous psychological principle, and it's used a lot in psychiatry. So getting people to imagine themselves in a future state of happiness, a future state of joy, a future state where their problem is solved. If you can help them imagine that with your words, then they are much lower likely to then see themselves there and therefore want to kind of take the action or work with you. So if you can describe what the future will look like for them, make it really visual. It doesn't have to be long, a sentence or two near your button, just to kind of help them put themselves in the future, put themselves in the state where they have achieved the outcome that you're able to give them. So future pacing is a great psychology tool. The next one that I wanted to talk to you about is click triggers. So this sounds a little bit ominous, but click triggers are placed near your call to action buttons, and they are simply that kind of extra nudge that people might need in order to click the button. So someone is reading, they're really interested, but they're not 100% sure if you have helped someone like them before. If you can put a testimonial near your button that is from someone like the person that's reading, they're going to be like, okay, great, I know I can click the button now. So testimonials near your buttons are great. Statistics near your buttons are great. These are little click triggers that just help people take that action of clicking rather than not doing anything, which people are scared to click the button. Another really great click trigger is to tell people what's going to happen next. So people get really scared about clicking buttons because they're kind of like, oh, what's going to happen? If you click book a call, am I going to suddenly get called tomorrow and it won't be the right time for me and I don't, la la la. People get really scared. So if you can tell people what will happen once they've clicked the button, that's a really great click trigger because then it eliminates that fear of the unknown. And the last psychology principle I want to talk to you about today is to meet people's objections as they're reading your site. So the bad news is people are looking for a reason to say no. They do not want to make the decision to part with their money more often than not, unless they're in a kind of desperate state or need for it. So if you can answer the objections that people might have in their head, the reasons they're saying no in their head, and quash those, then they get to the end and they're kind of like, okay, I have no reason to object. So if you're weaving the objections into your copy, say, you may feel like this, but I can counteract that by saying this. So lay out the objection and why they don't need to have that worry or that fear, because you solve it this way. So meeting their objections is another great little psychology tool. So just to recap, for psychology principles or sales psychology principles for your website, use binary choice with your buttons. Not all of them, but for the ones definitely at the end of the page, I would recommend using binary choice. Use future pacing so people can imagine themselves in that future state after they've used your service. Use click triggers near your buttons, such as testimonials or stats, or tell people what will happen after they click. And meet people's objections as they're reading your copy. They are looking for a reason to say no, so don't give them one. All right, so tomorrow is our last day together. So we are going to look at brand voice and how you can actually apply some psychology to brand voice to keep your brand voice consistent and find a brand voice that works for you. So I will see you then.